Good day, everyone, and welcome to the QIN-QIO 508 compliance training. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions during the question and answer sessions. You may register to ask a question anytime by pressing the star and 1 on your touch-tone phone, and can remove yourself from the queue by pressing the pound key. Please note today's call is being recorded, and it's my pleasure to turn the conference over to Swati Daniels. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Keith. Hello and good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for attending the 508 compliance training for PDF tagging. This training will teach and demonstrate how to make your PDF documents compliant by following certain standards and guidelines. This training is for 508 analysts that have a general idea on how to remediate PDF documents and want to learn advanced tagging skills. I am Swati Daniels, the Technology Manager and 508 Analyst at the Bizzell Group. I have over 7 years' experience remediating documents for private and government clients. I am excited to share the knowledge I have picked up over the years, and hopefully this training will assist all of you with incorporating the skills you learned today into your 508 process within your organization, and as well as having 508 compliant ready documents. Please save any questions you may have till the end of the training, and I will answer them for you. Next slide, please. Today, we will cover several important topics to help you successfully tag and remediate your PDF document. After presenting related topics, I will follow with demonstrations. Before we begin, can we have our first poll question, please? This will give us an idea of which organizations our participants belong to. Please take a minute to answer. Thank you for your response. Next slide, please. Everyone has handled a PDF document either at work or personally. What's the point of converting documents to a PDF, you may ask? PDFs are typically used to distribute read-only documents that preserve the layout of a page. They are created from source files. If you attended last week's webinar on how to make Word and PowerPoint documents compliant, you probably still remember what a source file is. All source files, such as Word and PowerPoint documents, need to be converted to a PDF in order to make it available to the public. This way, no one can manipulate the layout or content of the page. It can simply be viewed within a browser or Acrobat reader. Adobe Acrobat Pro is the recommended software to use in order to remediate your documents. It is best to always have the latest version and keep your application updated. If you use an older version, you may not have all the features and functionality. For today's demonstrations, I will be using Adobe Acrobat Pro DC 2020, which is the latest version. If you are following along with an older version of Acrobat, some of the layout tools and functions may look different, but the workflow is similar. Next slide, please. We're going to discuss several document properties and general settings. After you have created your PDF document, the document properties will need to be verified for accuracy or filled out if empty. This step is to ensure that the file meets organization standards and passes the built-in accessibility checker tool. Always check the document properties before you do any other work on the PDF. Make sure the following fields are filled in. The title, which is the name of the document, not the file name. Author, which is not the actual person who created the document, but the organization it belongs to. The subject can be the type of document it is, such as a presentation, workshop, training, etc. The keywords field is optional. It assists readers to find documents on the internet or document database. In some cases, you will notice that the fields are already populated. This is because they were initially filled out in the source file, so once converted to a PDF, the settings also converted over. This may not always happen, so it's a good habit to always double check. Next slide, please. A screen reader will need to know which language the document is written in. Setting the language of the document is very important. Even if it was set within the source file, it needs to be checked again. English is the default language. The only time the language should be changed is if the whole document is in another language. For example, if the document is in Spanish, then the language can be changed to Spanish. There may be times when parts of a document are in a foreign language, and you will have to set the language for that independently, and I will cover that in the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. Setting the document title is very important for screen readers. When a PDF is converted initially, the file name is displayed in the title bar of the document. For example, if you saved a document as Presentation Draft Version 1, that is what will display in the title bar. For a PDF to be 508 compliant, the document title should be displayed and not the file name. The document title is retrieved from the Description tab's title field in Document Properties. Next slide, please. Can we go back one slide, please? Okay. The last setting is to define the tab order. This dictates how a screen reader will read out the document while a user tabs through the document tags. It's always good to select Use Document Structure. The structure consists of tags for headings, figures, lists, tables, and paragraphs. We will look at all these tags soon. If any of the document properties are left empty or the correct selection is not made, it will result in failures when you run the accessibility checker. Always make it a habit to verify that all settings are filled out and set correctly. Now I will demonstrate on how to set the correct document properties for a PDF. So here is a PDF document, and this is the version of Adobe Acrobat Pro DC that I am using. It may look different from what you are using if you have an older version. But like I said, this is a very clean version where you could open multiple documents and you'll have tabs, so you don't have multiple windows at the bottom. So the first document property that we're going to look at is setting the title, subject, and file name. So we go to File, and you go to Properties right here. And then it opens up the Properties window, Document Properties window. So on the Description tab, this is one of the very important tabs. On the Description tab, you see the file name. Here's the title. So what you would do is fill out the title first. So in this case, we would just do, let's say, 508 PDF tagging training. Like I said, the author cannot be my name, so we'll just put in CMS. You can add more if you'd like. You can spell them out. And the subject can be either, it can be training, it could be a webinar, it could be anything that you'd wish. So right now we're going to leave it at training. Now, like I said, the keywords were optional, but in this, just for demonstration purposes, I will add, let's say, training, PDF, 508, compliance, and so on. You can add as many that you need. And then you always remember you save it at the bottom. So the next property we're going to look at is the initial view. So on the initial view tab, the only thing here that you have to worry about is the window show option. We change it, by default, it's usually file name. So what we do is we select document title. Now that document title is retrieved from here. So if you see up here, it says the name of the file right here, demo non-compliant is what's up here. What we want is the document title. And then on the Advanced tab, to select the language, you would select language from the reading option below here. So all the languages are listed here. Always make sure it's English. Sometimes it may be empty, so you'll actually have to select it. Now, what I want you to see again is in the initial view, I change it to document title. It's going to pick up this. So once I do OK at the bottom, you see that the name changed in the title bar. So that's the whole point. So when the screen reader opens up this document, it will read 508 PDF tagging training instead of the file's name. Now, defining tab order. So that is very important because a blind user will use the tab. He will tab through the tags to read the document. So the way you set this is you would go to the page's thumbnail right here, and then you would select all the pages in here. You can do a Control-A, and then you would do Properties, Page Properties. And here right now it's unspecified because this is an untagged document. I'll explain that in a little. What you want to do is use the document structure always. The document structure consists of headings, links, tables, figures. I would always prefer using use document structure and do OK. So those are the initial steps that you should always take before you start remediating your document. Back to the presentation, please. I will pause for a minute to answer any questions you may have. Please use the chat window to type your question. Okay, I don't see any questions coming through just yet. Let me just wait a second more. Okay, if you do think of any questions, please note them down and then you can ask them at the end of the presentation. So moving along, next slide please. Here I'll be introducing the tag structure. PDF tags are similar to HTML tags. If you are already familiar with basic HTML, then you'll recognize some of the tags. A PDF is not accessible if it does not contain tags. It is then just a plain document which is useless to someone who utilizes a screen reader to access it. The accessibility checker will fail if a document does not contain tags. PDF tags provide a hidden structured textual representation of the PDF. For example, documents with visual lists can be tagged with list tags. Documents with visual data tables can be tagged with table tags. Tags exist for accessibility purposes only and have no visible effect on the PDF file. When a PDF is created from a source file, initial tags will be generated based on the content of the file and the styles used. And there are multiple ways to tag a PDF. But just because you converted from an original source file does not mean that all the tags got moved over or converted over. You always have to manually check them one by one. Next slide, please. So locating and understanding tag panels. So the tag panels is something that will come up by default when you open Adobe, and I will go through that in the upcoming slides. By default, the tags icon should already be available on the far left pane where it can be selected. And if it's not available by default, you can always add it from the View menu option. Next slide, please. So Adobe Acrobat has standard tags. They are used to define pieces of content. Most have a preceding standard tag icon. However, certain tags have unique icons such as paragraphs, tables, figures. Within each tag will either be additional tags or content, and the content is preceded by a box icon. To see the visual location of the content in the PDF, select the content or tag containing the content in the tag area. A blue box will appear around the content. So now I will demonstrate how to locate tags and determine if a PDF has tags or not. So here's my original document. This is where you'll see the tags. And if you don't see the tags panel, you can go to View and Show Hide the navigation panes. And this is where you'll be able to select the tags. For example, there's the pages, thumbnails, there's bookmarks that we'll look at later, and then there's the accessibility checker. So all these icons are used most of the time when you're remediating a document. So this is where you would locate the tags. Right now, there are no tags available because this document has no tags. This is one way of knowing that there are no tags. Another way is you can go back into your document properties. Right here, File Properties, and you'll see on the Description tab at the very bottom, Tagged PDF, it'll say no, and if it's tagged, it'll say yes. So this is another way that you'll know. Now what I'm going to do is show you another one that has tags. And this is a document that has tags. So what we're going to do is expand the tree. It's called a tag tree. So once you expand the tree, you see all these different tags. Now we'll go through each one separately, but this is what a tag tree looks like. Yes, it looks very overwhelming because the more pages you have, the more tags you have. Because each tag represents content. So as I click through each tag, you see there's a little border created around the content. Sometimes you can't see the border because it's not enabled. You can right-click and do Highlight Content. So if I remove that, I'm going through the tag structure, but I don't know where I am within the document. So the best way is go back here, right-click on a tag, do Highlight Content, and there you are. Now I know where I am. I'm on heading 2. Oh, I'm on heading 3. I'm on a paragraph. Back to presentation, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. So Acrobat Pro has a functionality for automatically tagging an untagged PDF document. Even if you converted from Office using the Acrobat add-in, it's a good idea to verify that tags exist. If not, then you will have to add the tags. So there are actually two methods that I'll be showing you in a little bit. One is to use the Tools and Accessibility tool, and then there's one where you can manually add the tags. Next slide, please. Assistive technology will read the content in the order it appears in the tag structure. Reading order issues can be introduced in the conversion or initial tagging process, so it is important to ensure the tag structure reflects the logical reading order of the document. Moving a tag may also be needed to ensure the proper structure of more complex content, such as lists and tables. A manual check may be required for more complex documents and documents that were converted from non-compliant source files. I will be demonstrating later on how to move tags up and down and how to create child tags and move them into the parent tag, as well as moving empty tags. Next slide, please. To get a high-level view of the reading order, you can always use the touch-up reading order tool. This gives you all the details of the content and in which order it's going to be read by the screen reader. If anything seems out of place, it is not recommended to use the touch-up reading order tool to fix reading order issues, as it may cause additional issues in the tag structure. If ever there is a disconnect between the order displayed in the touch-up reading order tool and the tag structure, go by the tag structure always. I will now demonstrate how to add tags to a PDF, manipulate the tags, and introduce you to the touch-up reading tool. So here's my document. I have no tags right now. So the first method to add tags is right-click on the No Tags Available and add tags to the document. That's one method. And another method is to open up the Tools Accessibility. So you go to Tools, you search for Accessibility. Right here, you add this tool to your Adobe, and then you go back to your document. And then once you click on Accessibility here, you'll see Auto Tag Document. So those are the two ways. So I'm going to go ahead and use Add Tags to Document this way. So what this is doing is adding all the tags. Now they may not be all correct, and that's why I have to manually go through them at a later point. So now you see all the tags are here. They just go on. So this is what Adobe thinks is the right way, which is actually not. And then if I delete these tags and I want to re-add them, I go back to Auto Tag Document. And it'll do the same thing again. It will just tag the document again. There's a difference. Auto Tag Documents used a little bit of partitioning and made it a little bit more cleaner. Now, sometimes you might have a document that is password protected or created in a different software, which is not Office. It's not PowerPoint or Office, Word. It may be an InDesign. So this may be grayed out. You may not have the option to auto tag a document or even add tags to a document. So always make sure that nothing is password protected. So now that I have everything tagged here, I want to see the high-level tag structure. This is your reading order tool right here. This is your best friend, actually. You can do a lot of things through here. So once you click the reading order tool, what it gives you is the reading order. Simple as that. It shows you that the figure is first, and then there's a content order also. So you can switch what you want to see here. So what I like to look at are the groups. And then it'll show you, like, this is the first thing that the screen reader is going to read. This is the second thing it's going to read. Then the third, so on. So throughout the document, it's going to do that. And that just helps you know. But again, like I said, you do not change things here. You cannot move 3 up to 2 and 2 down to 3. If you want to do those things, you do them through the tag panel. And we'll get to these other options on the reading tool later. Okay, so we went through how to add tags, how to look at the overall structure. Now what we can look at are moving tags. So these are the tags. As I said, this is the main tag, and within the tag is the content. So the tag tells the screen reader what we're looking at. It's a figure. And then the content is in the box. That's actually encompassing the figure. And then if you keep opening, like heading 3, this is a heading. That's just the tag, so the screen reader will announce it, heading 3, and then it will read why disadvantaged communities are at higher risk. So once you open these, then you can see these. And you can move these around. Suppose I wanted paragraph above that. So what I would do is hold down on my tag and drag it up to the next level, to the top level, and release. And now I've moved it. And so forth. So you can actually move these up and down. So I just moved this paragraph above my heading. There is no way to delete these, so there's no cut, copy, paste. Like suppose if you want to create multiple headings, you cannot just simply right-click and copy. There is no way you can cut and copy anything. It'll still be there. Even if you delete a tag or you delete content, it's still there as a ghost, and it will fail the accessibility checker. Now suppose if I have an empty tag, like let's say I'm over here and there's 2 in here. There's 2 headings in one, but I want to move it into this heading. This is where I want it. So what I do is just take it and I drag it into the empty tag, and now it's tagged. All my headings are tagged, sorry. And that's just how you move them. And then you may have parent tags where I want this guy under my other heading. So what you do is move it, and you see the lines, they stretch or they get small. There's different ways of doing this, so I just moved it into the parent tag. So now if I close my parent, the child is inside the parent tag. And then sometimes you may have empty tags. So let's move this guy down here. If you have an empty tag, let's move him down here. Okay, this is an empty tag. There's no content in here. You can simply right-click and delete the tag. Because he's empty, you can delete it. But if it had content, you cannot simply delete it. That's one way. Sometimes a document gets converted from Word and it adds extra empty tags. There just may be too many tags because it's tagging the extra space in between. So one way to get rid of empty tags is go to the Options menu for tags, and you can just delete empty tags. And what that will do is just clean it up for you, and you don't have to worry about checking those. So I'll do that, and my empty tag is gone. It was right here. It's gone. Back to presentation, please. If there are any questions on this, can you please type it in the chat? Okay, I see a question coming in. 1 second. No, there is no limit to how many headings you can apply. You can use multiple headings, so we're going to get to the heading structure. You just have to follow a heading structure. Another question is, sometimes when I move a tag to fix the reading order, the content disappears from the document. Why is that, and how can you keep that from happening? Yeah, sometimes that will disappear, and that's just something you can't avoid. You have to be very careful when you're moving things. They will disappear because of things you're deleting them. So you always save your document, and then you can reopen it and fix the changes. It's a glitch that Adobe has, and it just disappears. Another thing, if the delete empty tags option doesn't work, you would just right-click the empty tag and delete the tag, since it doesn't have any content inside of it. If there's content, then you'd have to create it. You have to create an artifact, and I'm going to go over that soon. But the only option is to right-click. But usually the option should always be there. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to delete empty tags. But in that case, you would just right-click and delete it. You're welcome. Next slide, please. So here we're going to learn about finding tagged content from the document panel. The amount of tags a document may contain can vary for each document. A PDF can be one page, but have content that is broken down into multiple paragraphs, images, charts, and graphs. On the other hand, a PDF can be hundreds of pages containing thousands of tags. I've been there, trust me, it's not fun. You may have to fix only one sentence, and finding that one tag in the ocean of tags will be time-consuming. Therefore, using the Select tool, you can easily find the tag you need. If the content is not tagged, then you will be notified that the selection was not found. If this occurs, then tag the content right away. Next slide, please. When a piece of content is incorrectly tagged, the tag needs to be updated. Sometimes an image may be tagged as a table, a paragraph can be tagged as a heading, and so forth. This usually happens while converting complex documents. This can be confusing for the reader since he or she cannot see the content. Modifying the tag can either be done directly in the tag tree or using the touch-up reading order tool. While the touch-up reading order tool might be easier, not all tags are available with this method. Next slide, please. Tags can be added directly into the tag structure. This can come in handy when building structured elements such as lists or tables, or if a piece of content needs to be moved into a new tag. Another method to add tags is by using the touch-up reading order tool. You can highlight the content and then select one of the preset tags. Note that not all tags are present, just the commonly used ones. For example, you will not see list tags as a preset shortcut. Next slide, please. Not all content included in the PDF should be in the tag structure. Upon conversion or initial tagging, there may be background elements such as carriage returns or lines for separation and decorative images that do not convey information. Leaving these elements in the tag structure has the potential to confuse those who rely on assistive technology to interpret the page. You can remove decorative and irrelevant page elements from the tag structure without changing the visual look and feel of the document. This will hide the content from assistive technology users. Tagged content can be hidden with two methods. One, from the touch-up reading order tool, and the other directly from the tag tree. As I mentioned a while ago, deleting a tag will remove it from the tag tree, but deleting content directly will visually remove the content from the tag tree, but will remain in the background and can cause issues when the accessibility checker is run. Also, tags and content boxes cannot be copied, cut, and pasted. Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts to creating multiple tags all at once manually. I will now demonstrate on how to find, add, and modify delete tags. All right, so here we're back at our PDF document. So suppose I have all these tags. I really can't go through each and every one looking like this is what it would look like if I had all day to go through each one. Okay, where is it? Where is it? What I'm looking for is testing disparities. Okay, so what I have to do manually is go through each one. I don't have all day. So the easiest way to do this is highlight this. If you're unable to highlight it, what you do is go up to this arrow. That's the selection tool for text and images. What I'll do is select that, and then I can highlight what I'm looking for. And then you go to the tools, tag tools options, and then you do find tag from selection. It's simple. I selected something. I'm looking for the tag. Find tag from selection. So let's look at this again. I would just highlight this heading, go back to options, and find tag from my selection. And here it is. I found it. It's right here. It's a heading 4, and it's testing disparities. Now, if I wanted to find something elsewhere, like, for example, I want this whole paragraph. I want to find this whole paragraph. So what do I do again? I select it, come back here, find tag from selection. There it is. I have found it. So once I find it, now I can either move it somewhere or I can, restructure it. I can add things to it, and I just know that it's there. Now, let's go back up here. For example, we did find this, right? We went up here. We said find tag from selection. It's here. Now, suppose this was not tagged. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change this later. So suppose it's not tagged. The tag is there, but let me look for this again. I want to change it. Options, find tag. Oh, it's not there. Why? Because it's not tagged. So when something is not tagged, this is what you will find. The selection was not found. And then the next best thing to do is tag it. Okay, so we just found out how to find untagged content. Now, suppose I want to change this to just a paragraph. It's not a heading for me anymore. I don't want it to be a heading. So what I can do is I can look for this again, find tag. Oh, it's not there. I can create it. So what I can do is new tag. I'm going to do a new tag, okay? And from this new tags menu, there's a list of tags that I could, these are all of the default tags that are included in Adobe. What I'm looking for is a heading 1 tag. I'm going to tag it as a heading 1. So I came to the bottom. I'm going to see, like I can drag it up here, restructure it. I can put it here. This is empty right now. There's nothing in there. So what I'm going to do is select this tag, select the text, come back to my tag, right-click, and do Create Tag from Selection. Simple. Create. I'm creating. So I click on Create Tag from Selection, and now it's tagged. So now if I'm anywhere else on the document, I can highlight this, come back, find tag. Hey, there it is. Well, maybe I don't want it to be a tag anymore. I want it to be a paragraph instead. I can change it here. I can't just simply change this to P. I cannot do that. So what I would do is new tag, go to paragraph, select that, and it's created. And I can just drag this into my new tag right there. I can select it. So I just dragged that content in there. Another way to do that is if you go to the reading order tool right here. So this is showing me the structure. I can change it to page content order. I can change it to structure. And I want to change it to structure. So right now this is my paragraph that I did. I don't want it to be a paragraph. I think it's better as a heading. What I can do is draw a little square around my content, release, and change it to a heading 1, 2, 3, or whatever I want here. This is a shortcut, so I want it back to heading 1. So now there's heading 1. And if you can see, it changed. It shows you heading 1. I went from P to heading 1. It just created that. I can do that with anything. If I want to change my figure to something else, I can click over here and change it. If I want to change this whole thing to a heading 6, I feel like making a heading 6, I can change it right here. And it'll change it within the structure. Okay, so we just learned how to modify tags, learned how to create new tags. So suppose this was not tagged at all. Like for example, this isn't tagged. You can see it's not tagged. First of all, you will not, if you select it and look for it, you can't find it. And then another way is reading tool. You see it's not highlighted. There's nothing associated with it. So again, I'm going to draw a little square, a box around my content. I want that to be a heading. I'd like that to be a heading 2. And all of the other text, I'd like it to be text or paragraph. Right here, text or paragraph, you select it from here. So there are 2 ways to do it. If I'm working with multiple pages and repetitive edits, I use the reading order tool because it's simply very easy for me. So that's one way. But if you have a short 1 page or 2 pages also, it's good to practice both in the beginning if you're new to tagging PDFs. So that's my advice, is to practice both. And then you can choose which one you're the most comfortable with. If there are any questions, please go ahead and ask them in the chat window. So before I move on, there's one more thing I wanted to mention was, suppose I already said that, I already mentioned how you can you cannot delete these just by simply deleting. You cannot delete tags or the contents. So one way is, suppose I don't want this figure. I don't want that there, this image. I could open it up, look on the image, the content, right-click it, and create an artifact. Change to artifact. Now that means it will not be deleted, but it will be removed, and an artifact is something that a screen reader will completely ignore, as if it's not there at all. So what I do is change to artifact. And you just leave everything as default. And now you'll see the empty. It's empty. The tag is empty now because there is no content in it. Another way to do it is by...
sorry. We have a question in chat, if you would like to.
Yes, I'm coming back to. Yes, I'm coming back to it. And then another option is to use reading order. So if I wanted to remove my H2 here, I could go to background and click it from here. So you can either do it from here, change to artifact, or you can click on the reading tool and go background, and that will disappear. And that's one way to remove content. So always remember, you cannot delete, but you can move it to artifact. Right. Back to presentation, please. Okay, let me just get to the questions, please. If you mark something in Word as decorative, then PDF, the file, does it show as decorative? Yes. When you convert, if you do decorative, it will come back, but always double check that also in the tags. Mostly it does convert over correctly, so it will be marked as artifact and background. Next slide, please. So the first tags that we're going to look at are the paragraph tags. They should be used on visual paragraphs in the document and plain or decorative text that stands on its own and is not acting as a heading. If a paragraph runs onto the next page, then combine the content into one tag. This way, the screen reader knows that a paragraph is incomplete and continues onto the next page. Next slide, please. Heading tags. Heading tags should be used on text that is visually modified to act as a heading or to define a section of text in the document. There are 6 levels of tags that should follow a logical progression, no skipping levels. As subsections are introduced, the accessibility checker will flag for headings that are missing or skipped. It is recommended to only use H1, the first level heading, once to tag the title of the document. Sometimes you may have one main document which is comprised of multiple mini documents which have their own headings. In that case, the H1 tag can be used more than once. Next slide, please. List tags should be used on sequential items that are either numbered or bulleted. This ensures visual lists, including the number of items, are properly announced to assistive technology. I'll be going over this in a few minutes. Next slide, please. Here we have an example of simple lists and nested lists. The label tag is considered optional, but the bullet or number must be contained in the L body tag if omitted. Bullets are considered informational and must not be set to background. There are 2 types of lists you will encounter. One is a simple list and the other is a nested list. Nested lists are tagged under their parent list. There is no easy way to tag lists. You may have a document that may contain many lists and they may not necessarily get automatically tagged when converted from the source file. Once you practice, it will become easier, and tagging lists does require practice. Next slide, please. Okay, I have a question here. I'll just read that really quick. If you've gotten approval on a PDF document and already made it compliant, then are asked to make some minor revisions to the piece, you have to redo. You don't have to redo the whole tagging. If you know exactly where the revisions were made, like suppose a new heading was introduced, a new subheading, you can just go into the tag tree and add the new tag and tag the content. You do not have to retag everything. And I will go over another method that you can do to just tag something individually. Figure tags should be used on visual images that convey information only. If there is a group of images, such as a diagram, you can tag it as one whole figure and then give it the proper alt text. The alternate text property of the figure tag should contain text that conveys the same information a sighted user gains. We will look at how to add alt text to the images in the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. The link tag is used to encompass URL links. Along with tagging links, they should be checked to verify that they are active and go to the destination described in the text. Next slide. Most of the time, link tags are created during conversion of a source file. There will be times when you will have to create a new link, modify a link that is already present, or delete a link that is no longer needed. So links can be added and edited. Physical links will have a blue box appear around them and will have an additional menu appear when right-clicked on them. And delete physical links that should not be there. So if there's extra links that don't need to be there, they're repetitive, you can definitely delete them. Okay. Now I'll demonstrate some of the most common PDF tags. All right, so here's my PDF again. So as we've seen already, I did create the P tag. So the P tag encompasses any text, any paragraph, any text other than headings. Now, if you have a run-on, like suppose, like I have a document right here which has a run-on paragraph, which means it starts here, but it continues on to the next page. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a tag, paragraph. I'm going to move it up here just to display it right here. And I'm just going to pretend everything else is tagged right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tag this right here, the last paragraph on the page. I'm going to tag this, create tag from selection. And then I'm going to go to the second page and continue tagging because it belongs to the first page's paragraph. And then I'll come back here and create tag. Right-click, create tag from selection. So now, as you can see, it's highlighting the first page's paragraph and also the second because they're together. So they both belong together under the same paragraph. So that's how you tag run-on paragraphs. And that's very important. Otherwise, the screen reader will think that the paragraph has ended and a new paragraph has started. So that's the P tag for paragraphs only. And I did go over heading tags. So we're going to go look at headings again. So this is a heading. For every heading, you're going to use H1, H2, H3. So for example, over here, this is incorrect. So I want to change it. So what I'm going to do is use my reading order tool. Like I said, the very first one, this is my first heading. It has to be H1. So I'm going to create a H1 tag just for that heading, H1. And then the rest of them can be H2s. And I don't see any other heading types, so I'm going to leave it at H1 and H2. Suppose there was a third one, then it would be H3 and so on. So yes, you can have multiple headings as long as they're in sequential order. Okay. Now we will look at lists. Now list tags are a little complicated, so let me see if I have any right here. So here's a bulleted list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for this. I'm not sure where it is in the tags. Okay, it's right here. So here's a list tag. So if I expand it, I see LI, LI, LI. For each bulleted item, there's going to be a list item, which is the child. These are children listed under the parent L tag. And I've listed that out in the screenshot in the slide, so it'll be easy to understand. So that's the main tag, that's the parent tag. So visually there's 3 bullets, so I have 3 list items. And then as I expand that, there's a label which encompasses, the label that encompasses the bullet, and then the list body encompasses the text. So these always have to go together under the LI. So sometimes the accessibility checker will flag it if these are not under the parent. Okay, and the same goes for the next one right here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to background this one so we can do one together. All right. So it's gone. Okay, so we're going to create it from scratch. So what I do is new tag, look for list. There's my list, and that's going to encompass that whole list, all 3 items. Now I have to create 3 individual list items. So I go back, list item 1, list item 2. This is all manual, there is no shortcut. List item 3. But they're all individual at the moment. So what I want to do is put my children with the parent. So you see how the lines changed a little bit? So keeping it there doesn't make a difference. So what I have to do is, once the line gets smaller, that means it's a child now. So there. So now it's a child. So if I close my main, my 3 guys are in there. They're still not tagged. So what I have to do now is create the label to put the bullet in. It looks really hard at the moment, but once you practice, it'll be second nature. And then you would drag that under your list item because he belongs to him. And then the list item body. So that's the structure for your first bullet. Now what I'm going to do is click on my label. I'm going to tag that little bullet right there. Create tag from selection. Perfect. Next, I'm going to tag my text right here. Create. All right. So now what we have is our first bullet. And we can do the same thing. I'll just do it one more time so you get an idea. Label, new tag, item body, put them with their parent right there, and then we will tag this bullet right here, and then we will tag the text right there. Create tag from selection. Now what do we have? The second one. So if I close the parent, now it says that both of them have been tagged. Now the same thing would go for the second one. So here is the same deal. So there's 4 bullets, 1, 2, 3, 4. You open each one up, there's a label and there's a bullet. In this case, the label is 1. Okay, that's how you do that. Now, for example, this was a, this is a nested list. So let's find this one, right? Let's find this one. All right. This is done incorrectly because it was auto-tagged. I didn't tag it. So in this case, there would be a parent, and then within the parent would be another parent with their children. So what I'm going to do is recreate this. I'm going to recreate these. All right. Okay, I'm right there. So let's go ahead and create just the first one. I'm just going to demo the first one. New tag. I'm going to do a list again because that's the main one. And then I'm going to tag that first thing. List item, I just need 1 because there's only 1. Label for the bullet. List item body, okay. So put the label right within there and there. Okay. I'm going to tag the bullet first, and I'm going to tag that text duo right there. Okay. So that's our first one, but there's another one. There's a nested list. So what the nested list is, the same structure, but within the body of the first one. So here what you'll do is go to dual, because that's the last thing you created, and now do all of this all over again. To, follow the same steps. Create a new tag. I'm going to do list. I'm focusing more on lists right now because it is the hardest, and it's very hard for people to get a grasp of it. I'm going to create my list item again, get my label tag, and the list body. I just cross my fingers sometimes when I get documents that all of this is done. Okay, so there's the list, label, there. Now we're going to encompass the second one, create, and with this here, and we're going to add all of this text in there for the L body, create text for the L body. Now I'll close, so this belongs to its own list, but he belongs to the main list. So that's what a nested list looks like. And sometimes these nested lists can go on forever. So you have to be very careful. And yes, it is a lot of work to do them. It's very repetitive. But like I said, practice makes perfect. That's what a list looks like. So what we looked at was simple lists, and we also looked at nested lists. Now we're going to move on to figures. So we do have a few figures here. The very first page had a figure. This is a figure. So if it wasn't tagged, right now it doesn't look like it's tagged. So here's a figure. It's not tagged at all. What you would do, the first method would be draw. Draw a square around it and release. I'm going to pretend that the text is part of the figure, and then just make figure right there. You click on that, and now it's a figure. That's the easiest way to do it. You can do it through the tags menu, but sometimes it doesn't happen right away. It doesn't work right away. So I would use the reading order tool to create a figure. And I have other figures over here. Like I have one here. Like if this was background, what I would do is highlight the picture, draw a little square around it. It gets selected, and then I would select figure. I don't do figure and caption too much because I create alt text anyways, so this would just be a figure. Okay, and once you do that, you can see your figures in here. You can open them up and see them. All right, we're going to look at links. So let me close that. So here's a bunch of links to websites and references. Now, how do we look at links? So these, you have to make sure they go somewhere. You always have to make sure. So you go to the accessibility, open that, and all you do is pretty much, let me look for it first so you know what it looks like. So these are links. This is the link tab. And when you create a link, it'll show a link OBJR tag as well, and then your link will be there. So what you pretty much do is select it. You select that, and then you can right-click on your link, and you can do delete link, or you can edit your link if you'd like. So suppose if I wanted to edit my link, I just click on that and select, these are all just default, but I can say where does it go? Does it execute a menu? Does it go to a website? Does it open something? I can update it by edit and say it could go to google.com if I wanted. You do cancel. So suppose I want to create a new link. I'm going to create a new link for a second. Okay, so let's just say I'm putting in a new link right here. Okay, I'm just putting in my text. I just did google.com. It's not a link. I can't click on it. It's not a link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. First I'm going to create, let's see if I can create a new tag, P, paragraph. I create the paragraph tag. It's right here. And then I'm going to tag this, the google.com, create tag from selection. And then I'm going to create a link. Create link. So what I did was just, clicking on the text, right-click, and create link. And then the link properties come up. So here I can create my link. I can change the style. I can do whatever I want. I want this to open up a web page. It can go to a file. It can go to a page within your document. But in this case, we're going to open up a web page. Next, let's say google.com. All right? And then we do OK. And now it's a link. Now that I created the link, you see how the link OBJR was created? And the link was created. I did not create that. It does it by itself. So now that you know that a link is editable and active if there's a blue boundary around it. So you can always click on it and you can delete the link. You can, like I said, you can edit it. It can go somewhere else if you want. And you can also delete the link. Delete the link. There, I've deleted it. Now nobody can click on it. So that's how you do links. And links for accessibility also have to be blue or a different color from the text, and they have to be underlined, and always make sure they work. They go to the following destination. So sometimes links, like I said, are created by their own, so you don't really have to worry too much. Can we go back to the presentation, please? If there are any questions, please go ahead and ask them in the chat window. It's a lot of information for the beginning, but you know the slides are there. You know, I would recommend using them as a reference. All right, moving on to alternate text for images. Next slide, please. A converted PDF document may already have alt text present for images. This is only possible if the source file contained the alt text for the images. 90% of the time, the alt text converts over, but then there is that 10% chance that they did not. So in this case, you will have to add the alt text to the images manually. It is very important not to skip this step. Screen reader users rely on alt text to obtain information that the image may convey. If they are decorative images, then the alt text can be left empty and the image set to background. A question came through. If you use Word's built-in list feature, save as PDF, does it appear tagged as list in the PDF? Yes, if you use the inbuilt tool, even for headings or lists, they should be converted over and the list tags will show up. Next slide, please. Forms. You'll receive a lot of forms. To make a form accessible, there are 4 steps to follow. Most PDF forms start out as Word files or other electronic documents with empty spaces for form fields. Actual form fields must be added with Acrobat before the file can be filled out electronically. With most files, the easiest way to add form fields is to have Acrobat detect and label these fields automatically. There are 2 main ways to do this, using the Forms tool to add fields to an existing document or by manually adding form fields. Now I will demonstrate on how to tag a form. So here's a form that is not tagged at all. Okay, there are no, well, it has tags, but you can't really do anything with, there are no form tags on here. So what you would do is use the form tool. There's a tool here for forms. It's called Prepare Form. So if you add that, it's going to ask you if this is the file you want to use. So you say yes, start. What it did was automatically added the form fields for you. So this means that it is now accessible. But suppose you didn't have the forms here. Let's say date of birth was removed, delete. It didn't tag that. You can tag it by yourself. You can actually manually tag it. So what you would do is select the text box, use a text field, drag it down to the section you want it at, and release. Okay, it doesn't want to do it for me right now, but usually you can. And then there's a tool tip. Tool tips are very important. See, like when I hovered over it, it said Medicare Quality of Care Complaint Form. So if you double click any of the fields, you'll find all the information here, all the details of the form field. Here, the name is already there. You name the field, but the tooltip can be the same, so that instead of them reading the field name, they can use a tooltip when they hover over it. Especially if somebody with like low vision or something, they can use that if they're not using a screen reader. So that's really important. So that's pretty much what you do for a form. You can create them, you can create the fields on your own, but usually Adobe takes care of it. And then you can change the tooltips to whatever else you want if you want. You can always modify these. And then you just save your form and then, upload it and make it accessible. It'll be accessible now. All right, back to presentation, please. Thank you. Earlier I mentioned foreign words and phrases. So there is a way to only do foreign, when a word or phrase appears in a document that is of a different language than the main language of the document, the tag containing that word or phrase must have the language properly set so screen readers can correctly announce the content. You do not change the language of the document within the document properties, but just the phrase or sentence within the object properties. Next slide, please. Sometimes the table of contents tags are created automatically when a source file is converted to a PDF. Again, try to use Word's inbuilt table of contents tool, because that will help with the tags later. If the table of contents is large, the tags may not all convert over and require a manual check. It is okay to have multiple tables of contents exist in a single document. A trick that I use to tag a long table of contents that may be part of a huge document consisting of, let's say, 300 pages, is that I extract the pages where the table of contents is and I retag them separately. And then I add them back to the main document. Sometimes Acrobat can hang or crash due to all those tags. Next slide, please. You will also encounter reference and note tags that should be used on citations within the main body and the corresponding foot or end note respectively. First, you would add the reference tag and then the note tag. The reference will be the citation number, usually a superscript within the body of the document. The note is the actual text at the end of the page. When user clicks on the citation number, they will be referred to the note at the end of the page. I will go ahead and demonstrate a few things that we just covered. All right. So here's a document, here's a section of page where half of it's written in English and half of it is in Spanish. So what I'm going to do is I cannot change the properties within the document properties, but I can just for this section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where this text is. Find tag from selection, it's down here. So what I'm going to do is I found it, it's in Spanish, and I open the tag, right-click, Properties. And once you go to the properties, here is where you would set the language just for that section. So in this case, it's Spanish, so I'm going to go ahead and look for it. There it is. So what this does, and then you always save it, and you close. So what this does is when the screen reader is reading it, it'll switch to Spanish, from English to Spanish. That's what that does. Here's a sample of the table of contents. So we're going to look for our tags. I'm just going to show you the tag structure and how that looks like. So here, it's going to use the TOC, Table of Content Tags. So this encompasses all of the table of contents. I've created that in Word. That's why it's very structured and neat. And then I'll open one of them. It has the links. The links take you to the actual page. And then this will be created automatically. You can definitely do it one by one. Usually you never have to, because if you create it in Word, it will convert over correctly. You have the link, you have the title, you have the leader, and you have the page. That's all that makes up the table of contents. So that is under the TOCI tag. Now we're going to go back up here, and I'm going to show you really quick the references. Here we have a couple of references. So I'm going to find my tag. Sorry. It's jumpy. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to look for my tags. All right, here it is. So here's my references. They have not been tagged correctly at all. So if I go down here, I don't see any tags. I don't see reference tags. So what I'm going to do is find where this is. Let's say it was up here. Let's say, for example, this is the tag. It's a link. So what I'm going to do is new tag, have my reference. That's my reference. Come to the bottom, okay. I will tag my reference. Create tag, all right. And then I will create my note. My note. And my note consists of this information down here. All of this will encompass the note. And that's how you create references and notes. This is an empty tag. I can change to artifact because it doesn't have any information. So there's a note and there's that. And then you can encompass it into one paragraph if you'd like. So they stay together. So you see how it's highlighted, the reference is highlighted as well as the note. And back to presentation, please. All right, tables. There are two, next slide, please, tables. There are two methods on how to create tables, the layout and data. Layout tables position items on a page. Data tables present data in a grid. A data table must have a header row and include a caption or table summary that describes the content contained in the table. When creating tables, be sure to use a simple table structure with a column and row header. This will allow individuals with assistive technology to understand the information that the table is providing and keep track of their location in the table. If a header row is missing, the accessibility checker will fail. Next slide, please. So Adobe has a built-in table editor tool which can assist you in creating tables and looking at the table structure. So once you open up the Touch of Reading Order tool, Acrobat will show you all the lines on the table and the tagging to give you a visual representation of the table and the properties of individual cells or groups of cells. Next slide, please. So some of your tables may be complex, and it will need, you may have to set column and row spans. And I'll demonstrate that next in one of my other slides. Next slide. So here what you can do is you can set header cells, because once the structure is correct, the header cells must be defined as T8 cells. If they're not already defined, you can define them manually. You can also set the scope, because sometimes tables may have multiple rows and headings, so you may have to set the scope. And also you can set IDs and headers. if the data table has more than one set of columns and or rows. That usually happens with complex tables. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and demo on how to look at table layout. Okay, here we have let me minimize that. We have a simple table. This is a simple table. It's already been tagged. So what I'm going to do is look for it in my tag structure. It's right here. This is my table. So you see it has the table structure here. But it's not correctly tagged. So what I'm going to do is check my reading order tool. It's tagged as a figure. This is not a figure. It's a table. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do background. So I'm going to send it to the background, this part too, and I'm going to re-tag it as a table. So what you do right here is draw your rectangle around the table, come back to your tool and say table. There it is. Now it's tagged as a table. Now if you want to see the table properties, you can select the tag, right-click, and do table editor. Now what the table editor does is shows you what the table headers look like and what the table data cells look like. You can go into individual ones and change them if you want. You can do table cell properties. You can move it to be a header. You can move it to be a data cell. So it all depends on what you want to, and then you can associate it. And the same place here is where you can do row spans. For example, let me get out of this. Let me show you on another table. Sorry. So this table is a little complex table. So you see how this row spans over 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, 4 columns. So what you'll do is table editor, look at the table editor, and then you would go to the cell property, the one cell property, and you see how it's spanned 2. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, so I can just change that to 4, and that's correct. And the row span is just 1. So this is where you could change the row spans in this. And the ID is when you have very complex tables, you can actually associate a data cell back to another header, and that header can go back to another header. So there could be like multiple levels of headers. So this is a complex table, an example of one complex table, and then this is a simple table. Back to the presentation, please. Okay. Next slide, please. So here's a question that I've gotten. So the tag tree needs to match reading order. Does that happen automatically, or do you have to change the order manually? Initially, what we did was set the reading order. We clicked on all the pages and did page properties, and we set the tab order to use the structure, document structure. So that would follow, so the reading order follows the document structure. All right, moving along. There is no need to worry about container tags. Container tags do not negatively affect accessibility and will not cause any issues in the accessibility checker. That means, like we saw earlier, there was parts, sections. Those are they're just for decoration. They don't mean anything. It's just that Adobe likes to categorize things, so you don't have to worry about container tags. They will not be read out by the accessibility assistive technology. Bookmarks are very important to include in a PDF. Even if you have a table of contents, the bookmarks should always be there for, even if there's a table of contents present, it's easier for users of screen readers to navigate a PDF document using the bookmarks. They can be added manually or by using the bookmarks options. There are various ways to add bookmarks. You can choose the best method that works for you. Now, content editing you should avoid that as much as possible, but in certain situations, like we had a question earlier where, if there's one thing, can I edit it, can I go back and retag just that one thing? Sometimes you may have to edit a document. So if minor changes are required within the document, they can be made in the PDF itself using the Edit PDF tool. This avoids having to update the source file, then converting again, and then having to restart the tagging process. You can add, delete, replace pages as well in a PDF. This is useful when you want to work in batches or incorporate an external PDF file. After a page or pages are added, any tags from the new file will be added to the bottom of the tag structure. Be sure to place them in the appropriate position on the tag tree as needed. Next slide, please. Some PDF documents may not contain any textual content. This means the PDF is a scanned document. In order to tag such a document, the text needs to be extracted from the image. The OCR tool does just that. Once text is extracted, you can then tag the document. The very last thing to do is run the accessibility checker. Next slide, please. And that is to make sure there are no errors and that the document passes 508 compliance. Do not only depend on the checker, but conduct manual checks to make sure nothing was missed. Color, navigation links, bookmarks, etc. will need manual checks. There is a built-in accessibility checker in Acrobat. Although it does not guarantee a compliant document, even if it passes all checks, it does show basic errors. A fail for any of the checks means the document is probably not compliant. Under Documents, you will always see a few things flagged by default, such as logical reading order and navigational links or color. The checker will not check for these issues because they require the naked eye to verify. So I will go ahead and demonstrate our last demonstration for today. All right, so here is our PDF document. It has 14 pages, so I'm going to show you how to do bookmarks. Right now there are bookmarks. Now let's suppose I didn't have any bookmarks here. I'm going to go ahead and delete all my bookmarks. Delete. So the easy way is go to your bookmarks icon, click on the options, and do new bookmark from structure. This is the easiest way, because if you do new bookmark, you'll have to do it individually. So what I like to do is create them from the structure. Now you click that, and you can use any of these options, but I like to use my headings, because that's how my table of contents would probably look like as well. So you just select the headings tags, you do OK, and your bookmarks are created right here. So these are all your bookmarks. As you click on these, they will go to the different ones. All right, that's how you create bookmarks. And look at the tags. See, like I said, these little ones, these tags here are container tags. All they do is just contain things. They don't mean anything. So you don't have to ever worry about that. Now, if you want to edit something, like suppose I want to do, instead of testing, I wanted to do demonstrating or something. So what I would do is go to my tools, and I would do Edit PDF tool. And use this very wisely, because especially when you get client documents, you don't want to change any of the content without permission. So suppose I want to change, so this is in edit mode. I can go ahead and change this to something else. So I just changed that. I'll say, here I can undo. I can undo the typing. See, it'll go back. I can change the color. I can do anything I want here now. And then always save it and close it. Okay, so this is where you can do the edits, but again, I don't recommend it. Okay, so that's where you can do the content editing. Now, like suppose you have a document, I believe I have one right here. At the very end, okay. So here's a snippet I got from the CMS blog. This is I cannot tag this at all. So if I do my reading order tool, I see it right here. I can't tag it because it's an image. So in this case, what you would do is you would go to your tools, and here you can do scan and OCR. Okay, so you would add this tool. It'll show up right here. Go back to your document, and you click on scan and OCR. You get these options. So what I do is recognize text. So you click on recognize text in this file only. Okay. And then you do recognize. You just leave everything as default. Recognize text. And now it's sitting here recognizing text. Just give it a few minutes. It's recognizing everything, actually. We just give that a second. And some text, because it's handwritten or something, may not be able to be, you cannot do OCR on them. So now that this is done, I go back to reading order. Now I can actually tag things because it's all text. So here's my first heading, and then I can tag all of this text, which I could not do earlier. And now they will show up at the bottom. So let me search where it went because it was scanned. Let's find it. Okay, here. So it is being tagged. So I just wanted to make sure it was being tagged. All right, so that's how you do OCR. And the last bit is the accessibility checker. So that's the last step. So the first step is check the document properties, and the very last step is to check the accessibility checker. So what we'll do is go back to accessibility tool, and here's your accessibility check. So once you click on accessibility check, you leave everything default. You don't have to worry about any of these things. You can also select if you want a report to be created. So here, I'm going to start checking. Wow, I have a lot of issues. So right here, you'll find all your errors. So if you expand each one, it'll tell you what was wrong. You know, it's not tagged, the PDF. Like I said, these are by default. They'll always stay there. And then here, it'll say tagged. All of this stuff was not done. So what you do is go back and you tag, or you do background. So you expand each and every one of them, and then you can either use the reading order tool to fix your stuff or your errors, or you can actually go to the tag or the content panel. This is where you'll find all your errors. You have to make sure that everything is green. You cannot cheat and do skip rule. You cannot do that. But if you don't understand how to do something, you can always explain. It'll take you to the Adobe website. It'll take you to their help documentation, and this is where they'll teach you how to do it. But it's very important that you have to check. So, and then this is what a report looks like. So here is the report for the non-compliant document. This is where things have failed. It'll show you where it failed. Again, clicking on one of these links will take you to the help page. And then here's one where it's compliant. In the summary, it says, you know, it just needs 2 checks, which were the default, but then everything else passed, 30 items passed. And this is just for like sanity check if the client's like, hey, you know what, I want to make sure you did it right. You know, you can always hand this in, or you can just keep a record of it. So that's what the reports are handy for. Right? So let's look at, I'm going to get out of this, was a non-compliant one. So now we're going to look at a very compliant one. So here's a compliant one. I have already added all the tags in order. Everything is fine. So I'm going to go to accessibility, check, leave my defaults. Voila, I have nothing. These are the default ones. I can go ahead and pass these because I already checked. But this is what it should look like. Everything should be green. Everything here is perfect. And you can expand them and make sure everything is passed. So that's a clean accessibility check. All right, and always save. There is no undo button. It's grayed out. Always check. Back to presentation, please. Next slide for tips and tricks. Now I've listed a few tips and tricks that I have learned throughout my PDF remediating experience. So unless there is no undo feature, which I've been mentioning throughout the demonstration, there is no undo. So unless you are using the Edit PDF tool, there is no undo feature. In that case, if you change the color of the text or accidentally delete an image or edit text, you can undo within editing. Please always remember to save your work either after you complete tagging several pages, else you will lose all the hard work you have done and will have to start over. Sometimes you will tag something by accident or forget to tag certain content. In that case, you can stop your work, save and exit the document and reopen it. It will reopen to the last saved version, and you can continue tagging. Another tip that is not listed here is to avoid including written signatures in your document. If you have to include them, obtain the correct permission to do so, or black it out so no one can save the signature and misuse it. So what I've mentioned, there is no undo feature. Always save your work. To get the full view of the tag structure, there's a shortcut. Click on the plus sign while holding down the Shift and Control key. It will show everything. For complex images, charts, and graphs, always provide a link to an accessible version of the content that already exists, or create an alternate version in Word to be added at the end of the document, or add a link to that page next to the original. Avoid applying passwords or security to a PDF. This can prohibit a screen reader from accessing the document, and others cannot make the document accessible. Always add tags to the document. You cannot submit or make available to the public without tags. And do not include animations or text that flicker. This can trigger seizures in some people if a screen flickers and then there's a warning that's triggered. So remove the script or content, please. Next slide, please. I have covered all the major concepts on how to make PDF documents 508 compliant. I highly recommend that you download today's training presentation and use it as a reference when needed. Let's now pause at this time to see if we have any dialogue around this. Keith, can you please remind folks how to get into the queue for Q&A?
Certainly.
And while the operator is getting things open, let me check with Anita to see if we have any chat questions.
And it's star and 1 on your touch-tone phone if you'd like to ask your question.
There are no further questions at this time.
And there are no phone questions.
I'll just wait a little bit in case we get any chat questions. If you can't think of any questions at the moment, we are having another Q&A session on June 24th, so you can always bring your questions to that webinar. The 24th webinar will have just Q&A where we'll answer any questions you may have regarding any of the webinars that have occurred so far. So if there's something, there's a lot of information, there's a lot more that you can do with PDFs, but it's just, with the time constraints, I wasn't able to cover each and every detail. So there is advanced tagging as well, like complex tables and whatnot. But, if you have specific questions, you can always please ask them on the 24th. I do not have a checklist, but I know if you go to hhs.gov, they do have one. So if you just check for PDF checklist, they do have one. But because it's outdated, I didn't want to refer that. If you have any questions, you can always, if you have any questions, you can submit them to QIO support@thebizzellgroup.com. And if you can get those into us before the 24th so we can be sure to address them, please.
We have a comment from Carrie McDermott. Excellent and thorough presentation. It was a bit overwhelming, to be honest. There are many things I learned and still need to learn. With tagging documents, your presentation resources will be super helpful.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. Can we please have our second poll question in regards to today's training? If you can please take a minute to answer these. Thank you. Thank you for your response. May we have our final poll question, please? All right, thank you for your response. This brings us to the end of the training presentation. I'd like to summarize the key points we learned today. We learned how to set the document properties for a PDF, how to tag a PDF, the common tags used for remediation, the importance of the accessibility checker, as well as some useful tips and tricks to assist with making your PDF documents 508 compliant. Please join us every Wednesday afternoon through June, where we'll tackle other 508 topics. Links to register for these sessions are included on the previous slide. There will be a Q&A session held on 24th. For any additional questions you may have, please feel free to register and bring your questions. I'd like to sign off by saying that remediating a PDF takes a lot of practice and patience, but always remember, you are helping someone with a disability access very, very important information. As Stevie Wonder once said, we need to make every single thing accessible to every single person with a disability. Thank you so much for your interest and attendance today. Have a safe and wonderful day. Goodbye.
And this will conclude today's program. Thank you for your attendance. You may now disconnect and have a great day.